admit that I was very hesitant to take up with the iPad. I was a holdout and stayed on my computer for many years. But the iPad apps for drawing are excellent, and they're so inexpensive. And this was the game changer for me. The Apple Pencil just feels right. And it just draws on your screen just the way you would expect your a pencil, even your paints to flow on the screen. It's wonderful. It just feels right. I can't explain anything except it just feels right. And this iPad just makes drawing and painting so convenient. I was telling Emily that I was preparing for my class over there at Grease Monkey while my car was being serviced. I am painting or drawing just about every day, which I never thought I would be able to say I can do. But it's just so easy to pick this up when I'm waiting someplace. When I first get up in the morning, I just relax with a cup of tea and my iPad. It's just so much easier. And you know how it goes. The more you paint, the more you practice, the better, the more capable you are. So it's a great tool for really getting you painting and drawing. So let me show you. I seem to be bouncing off here tonight. Do you see my screen? Yes. Yes, everybody sees my screen. Perfect. Okay, when you first open Procreate, you see all of your artwork. And this is so handy that...
Sorry, Elaine. I just wanted to let everybody know, if you can't see Elaine's screen, it's a photo of her holding an iPad. That's the one that we want to be looking at right now. If you go to the top right-hand corner and you'll see ... click on the ... dots, and then there'll be a drop-down, select pin, and then that will be the screen that you will see cover your computer. Awesome. Let me know if you have any trouble. You can let me know in the chat box.
Okay, so the iPad automatically, Procreate automatically saves all of your work here. You don't have to worry, did you save it? As soon as you close something, it's here and you can go back and pick it up at any time. I'm going to start a new document with the little plus, pick out a size. I like to work on a pretty big document because I often save these, print these, and submit them to shows. So I like to start as big as possible.
Elaine, are you screen sharing yet?
I have been. Did I get bounced off?
Yeah, we just see your image right now.
Okay. I hope we don't have problems with this because this...
There you go. Perfect.
There I am. I'm back on.
Perfect.
Okay. Just wave at me if by any chance I get bounced off again. Okay, so everybody sees my galleries, all my paintings. Perfect. Okay, I'm going to start on this nice big sheet. And I'm going to start off by showing you a few watercolor brushes because I'm going to just do the background and some nice, soft, watercolory things. Now, up in the upper right-hand corner, we can pick our colors. You have choices of how to pick your colors. Now, here's something. The color wheel is right here for you. If you are a painter who likes to see complements and split complements and such, but I prefer the classic, and I can use every color imaginable right here from this. So I'm going to go into my blues, and I'm going to pull up this group of that I call my watercolor brushes. And I'm going to use this big one. Okay. Now, my sliders on the left, this is the size of my brush. This is the opacity of my brush. And I'm just going to go in and paint. And you see how it's really coming in nice and wet and soft. And I can vary the color a little bit. Generally, we would think we would want the darker colors, but the sky gets lighter toward the horizon. But in this case, I want to give a little bit of a purplish cloud behind my my lighthouse. So I'm going to stay with the, I'm going to get a little more dramatic. And I'm going right down into the water because water always reflects the sky. And even if I change the color of the water at some point, it's nice to have that relationship. And I can paint over it. Now, there's about 150 brushes that come with Procreate, and you can add to them, you can adjust them. A lot you can do with them, but you have all those brushes right at your fingertips. And they're also available as a smudge. I like to call it my blender. Smudge just, I don't know, has a negative connotation to it. And you can blend with these different brushes and work out a little bit of the rough edges if you like. And you can also erase. You have your eraser, and your eraser gives you all of these different brushes, and you'll get different effects with different brushes. So you could spend days just playing with brushes. Now I have a set of cloud brushes here, and I'm going to pull up a little white, and I'm going to put in a few clouds. Maybe that's a little small. And anytime I don't like something, I have little arrows down here, and that will undo, and then it will redo. And that again is the beauty of digital. You haven't gone into an expensive piece of watercolor paper with a color that's totally wrong. It's totally going to stain. You can undo and redo to your heart's content. Okay, now, at this point, I'm going to start on that big headlands, and I'm going to put it on a new layer. Now, layers, when you first start out, layers seem to boggle the mind a little bit. People say, well, how do you know when to start with a new layer? That's going to be very obvious as we go along. So on a new layer, I hit the plus sign, I brought up a new layer. And I could go in with a pencil and I could draw my headlands. But right now, this is a pretty simple shape. So I'm just going to choose sort of a sandy color. And I'm going to go to my oil brushes. I'm going to show you what my oil brushes can do. We're going to go with the oil brush. Am I in it? Yep. And I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to paint in this rocky headland. Now, this is something that I came up with just for this demo, but basically it's loosely built on Cape Disappointment. When you were on the beach up by the campground, you see the North Head light at a distance. So it's kind of like a similar thing. You'll see that these brushes will blend, and I can try different ones. The spray paint brushes. Oh, let's see what these flicks. Yeah, that might be too much, but you'll see that all these different brushes blend differently. That's terrible. So let's undo a little bit. They all blend a little bit differently. They all work a little bit differently. And I got to get rid of that flex brush. Let's try something else here. What happened? I didn't hit it hard enough. There we go. We want to get a little bit darker, a little smaller brush because I want this rock over here a little darker. I want to get a little green at the top of the hill. And again, I'm just picking colors out of the air because that's how I paint. I just mix colors, try them out. That's a little dark. I'll mix in a little bit lighter, but everybody has their own style of dealing with it. And I do a lot of blending. Okay, now here's the magic of working on layers. And this is why this could be such a game changer for people who just need to work out compositional situations. This big rock here is completely independent from the background. So I can go in and I can move it around. I can make it bigger. I can make it taller. Now you can't do that on, especially watercolor. Once you got that in, you can scrub, you may not be able to get it out. But here in digital, you can move it around. You can flip it. What if I wanted to work on the other side? So this is a great tool for working out your sketches before you go to a large canvas or a large painting of any sort. You can work out all these little details. Okay, I think I like it there. And I'm going to have that little, you know how the trees just get blown and they seem to lean over. So I'm going to go a little darker on a new layer. And I'm going to get that tree work. I better look for a brush. Let me see. I think I want to go into my pencil again. I like the 6B pencil. Big, and it's okay. It's leaning against the wind. It has to have a little variety of color, even though it's up there where we're not going to make out all the nuances of color. Okay, kind of blend it in here a little bit. Okay, and again, this guy, because he's on a new layer, he can be moved around. But I'm fine with him right there. Okay, now we're really going to have fun. We have drawing guides in Procreate, and we can set up a grid. Now, I've never been one to transfer from a photo or a drawing with a grid, but there are those who do, and you can make that grid absolutely any size you need. It'll help you to get, if it helps you to make things straight that needs to be straight. Now, Lighthouse is kind of difficult.
You have a question? How do you move items within a layer?
Okay, let's go back, and that is our arrow up here. Do you see it turn blue? And that makes us move it around. Now, I have controls at the bottom. This is on free form, but I could make it uniform. I can distort it. And there's a warp, which will actually bend it over. But it's this transform tool up here that and it'll only move what's on that one layer. Does that answer the question?
I think so.
Okay, I'm sorry, I don't have the comments up. Emily, jump right in there for me then. Okay, did that help clear anything up?
Yeah,
Somebody?
thank you.
Okay, so let me get back here. And we were.
You have another question. How do you move layer 2? So how do you maybe decipher between all the different layers to move?
Well, I have to select the layer that I want to move. So I have to be mindful to watch these layers. Now, I'll be very honest with you. I hear that people are working on a ridiculous number, 25 layers, 50 layers. I can't keep track of that many. I usually work on 3 or 4. And I could now, as long as I'm sure where that tree is going to be, I could merge it down. And now it's on layer 2. And it now moves with the headland. When I remember many, many years ago when layers started in Photoshop, people were a little intimidated by it. Oh my goodness, those layers. It's a little something to wrap your head around. But once you start working in them, you love them. Because now I could go back to my sky and I could rework the sky. We might have to do that later. But we're going to get back in there again, a little more with layers. I would like to show you one of my all-time favorite things, and it's just priceless when you are painting a lighthouse. Now, when we have to paint a tower, we always tend to have things tilting a little bit. And I think that has to do with those of us who, when we learn to write, we're kind of trained to tilt a little bit. But we want the lighthouse nice and straight. In the drawing guides, we have more to choose from. We can go to isometric lines. It will give you perspective lines, but that's another whole ball of wax. Tonight, we want to use symmetry. And this is one of my favorites. So we take this, let me bring this up nice and dark so you can see it. We can take this line about where I want the tower of my lighthouse. And I have to press done. Now, prepare. I'm going to go into a nice flat brush. Please tell me I have a flat brush. This one will work. Okay, and I'm going to go to white and I'm going to paint half the tower. And watch what happens when I start and I take my line down and I wait, I hold it, it pulls to a perfectly straight line. And my symmetry tool has painted the other side perfectly straight. So as I fill in half the lighthouse, it's taking care of the other half for me. Now I can zoom in, that's just pinching with my fingers. Nice and straight lighthouse. I can go and let me get the details on that. And notice as I draw half the other, whoops. I think okay. As I draw half, the other half appears. Get the little top on it. Okay. That symmetry tool saves your life with things like vases, anything that have to be symmetrical. A candle, we don't need it tilted. It's a lifesaver. Okay, I'm going to get a little bit of a shadow on the side of that lighthouse. Now, I could do a couple of different, I could do it a couple of different ways. I could paint it a little bit of a soft blue. I'm going to go back to my watercolor brushes. Now I got to shut off, wait a minute. I have to shut off the assisted because I don't want it on both sides. I can do that right from my layers palette. And I could paint in the shadow, but it's a little difficult making sure that I stay in the lines. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make this, oh, well, I can't because he's on the headlines. I did not do a new layer. So, okay, we can fix that. We can go back and we can get that shadow. We can get that shadow in, bring down the opacity a little bit. Smudge them in. And if anything is sticking out, we can use our eraser. Get a nice hard edged eraser. Where do I have a nice hard edged eraser? Hard airbrush. We'll do it. Get that edge nice. I'm going to put in the little oil house that sits on the side. Now, if this guy were on its own layer, if I was paying attention instead of hard to talk and paint, I would be able to erase this, make this disappear. But see, now it's going to go right out to the sky. I've got to work on that. I got to replace some of that green back there. Blend it in a little bit. Okay. Get the roof on my building. I'm always going to the blue grays because I don't know, I just feel like shadows should be more blue gray. Get a roof on that puppy. Again, if I draw a line and hold it, it will snap straight. A little bit of shadow under the eaves there. Okay, now I have a couple of windows, and windows have always been my nemesis, getting those corners straight. Well, we have a rectangle selection, and I can put that rectangle selection right here and fill it. And we have a perfectly nice little rectangle window. Let's get a couple more in here. Okay, they should probably be a little darker. Yep, there we go. Okay, here's where our undo button is going to come in really handy. Gone. Absolutely gone. Okay, we zoom out. We have a beach to paint. I can go back to some of my Turpentine is a nice one. I'm going to be a little darker in the background. Wait a minute. I don't know. I think this is a new development that either I'm not pressing hard enough or my pencil isn't coming up with the brushes. I'm going to get a little lighter as we get forward. What's a beach without a few splatter of rocks? Salt might be fine. A little darker. Okay, Emily, do you have any questions there? Because I always feel like the silence while I'm painting or is deadening. What do you have up there? Do you have any questions for me?
No new questions yet, but I will definitely, I'm not afraid to interrupt you.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm just going to fill in some rocks. I'm going to put some rocks out here on the shore. That's too big. I want to get rid of that line for the symmetry is bugging me. So if I just turn off the drawing guides, it's gone. A little lighter. A little lighter. Now the watercolor is acting just like watercolor. Lighter is not covering. Funny how that happens. There's these luminance brushes. Now these are kind of fun because they do put
Dolores has a question. She wants to know if you can use a different tablet other than an iPad.
Unfortunately, Procreate is only made for iPad. There are other programs that are cross-platform. Art Rage is made for absolutely everything under the sun. Android, computer, the what is it? Some kind of it's a PC, but it's a touch screen. There's a version for that. That one is Sketchbook. Sketchbook is a completely free drawing program, and it's made for different platforms. There are many of these drawing programs out there. Procreate has somewhat risen to the top with the pros, with a lot of the illustrators. And when you think about it, there's a good reason. A few years ago, I had a conversation online with a fellow. You might recognize his work in greeting cards. He does some very comical, cartoony cowboys and horses and such. And I was in a chat room with him, and he said, you know, I did not want to go to this digital stuff. But he said, once I tried it, I realized that every time the art director was saying, I don't like the brown hat, show me a black hat, he had to repaint that. Now you can have multiple hats and recolorize it, have multiple ones. I have a deer that I painted that has shown up in several different paintings because every once in a while I just have a landscape and I pop the deer in, copy him out of another painting and pop him into this one. Okay, now I'm going to take a little bit of time with water. I'm going to go back to my watercolor, and this is one of my favorite brushes, this Old Beach. It's very watercolory, but yet it's got a hard edge. I'm going to go a little bit on the green side, not much. And you notice I'm always changing the size of my brush and the opacity of my brush. Oh, here is something that is hard to show, but you see that little square that's in between my sliders? That's the modifier. Now you can adjust to different ways of doing this, but the way I have this set, when I hit my thumb on that modifier button, watch what happens. And I go up into this green, it will actually pick out that exact green color. Now, how many times are you painting and you want to go back to a color you had painted before and you're trying to recreate that color and it's really hard to mix? Well, here you just sample, and perhaps you want to put a little bit of a greenish tinge in there, and it's going to match green on another part of your painting. Okay, I want to get a little bit bolder with not so green, a little bit bolder for some waves. Some waves coming in. I want to soften them a little bit. I don't remember what. Yeah, that'll work. I love my splatter brushes, and I'm going to go in and use one of my splatter brushes. This one's pretty big, but let's try it. To put some white foam as it hits. Look at that. You can put some waves in. Now the sand is usually darker where it's wet, so
Jeannie wants to know, how do you soften?
well, so we have several different ways. We can bring the opacity of our brush down, but the smudger will soften as well. So with this big fuzzy, it does soften the edges. Okay, did that help? Okay, so we just have a little bit of wet. Now, this is very important, and I'm sure those of you who've taken any kind of painting class has heard, check your values. The values in your painting is so important. You could get the colors all wrong, but if your values are right, your painting is going to work. Now, I remember in college, I never got it. Painting instructors were big on squint at your painting, squint at your painting. I didn't get it. It just, you know, making all kinds of faces, and I don't know. Here, you turn it into values, but I have to flatten it. Now, I want to flatten down my my painting, and then I'm going to go over here into my adjustments, and I'm going to take the saturation out completely. And you can check your values. Now, I think this is a little too dark here. It just seems like, boom, it's pushing us right in there. So I want to lighten that up. I like the dark of the tree. I think I need a little more work here in the hill to get that, first of all, to stand out from the sky, but maybe a few little darks in here. But this is the way that you can check your values. Now, if you are painting on a canvas, Don't be afraid to take a picture with your cell phone and then go into your photo editor and take out the color, or just set it on black and white. Nothing, your little instant camera on your phone will do this. It's a great tool for checking your values. Now, I can go back and undo. Okay, I got my layers back. Now, I had said that I wanted to soften that part. Maybe I'm going to try very low opacity on an eraser and see what happens. Yeah, but it's bringing a little bit of the blue in, but that's okay. I'm going to bring in a little more color. It's got to get out of those sprays. How about, maybe I'll show you a few of the charcoals. Charcoals are great for painting rocks. You have some nice texture in them. So we want to warm it up a little bit, and not too big. See that nice charcoaly texture? You would not think of mixing watercolor and oils and charcoal. And the only reason is because your traditional ground won't take it. Watercolor paper may not take the oil paint. They won't mix properly. But here in digital, you can mix. And you just have a crazy idea that you want a little bit of these charcoals in there, go for it. Now, I said that, isn't it funny how color deceives you? Here, the blue and that sandy color are distinct. But when we were in our values, they looked almost the same. And that's why it's really important to look at not only the color, but the values as well. So I'm going to make that a little bit darker there, because the color works, but I said I wanted a few more darks over here, put a little shadow on these rocks, maybe a few more, a little dark behind it, a little cooler dark. Now, here again, some of us get really caught up in details and we lose the freshness of a painting. How many times have you felt you overworked it? You can always undo it. You can always redo it. Okay, now we have a decision at this point. Do we keep it as a digital painting? Well, you certainly can. You can go to a nice place that does giclées. We have one over here in Vancouver, but I believe there's one down in the Pearl District. Dick Blick does them. It's just a very high quality, high resolution. It's not much different than inkjet. And have it printed. It can be printed on canvas. It can be printed on paper. You can mount it on cradle board. I had 2 digital pieces in the 200F under 200 piece show. They do great on cradle board. They do great framed and matted and framed like a watercolor under glass. They do great on canvas. You can even do it on canvas and then put in a little bit of texture with a palette knife. There's no end to what you can just finish it off as a digital painting. Or how great is this that you have pre-thought this painting out before you went to a really big canvas or a full sheet of watercolor paper. Now, you could connect a projector, digital projector. If you want to work on a really big canvas, hook up your digital projector and project this and have this to work from. Trace it out a little bit. It's your work, so reproducing it is only helping you to get it on that big canvas. You can, now I've often done this plein air, easy to not lose paintbrushes. I think I was out with Cindy. Cindy, you remember I've been out, you and I were out paint watercolor and I lost a brush in the high grasses. No losing, just don't lose this because these things are expensive, but you only have one pencil. I can work out in the wind in this. I can work out sitting in the seat of my car with this and not have to haul all the gear that I would have to haul out and become a wind sail if I tried to bring out a big canvas.
Elaine, you have a question from Carolyn. What is the program for computers you mentioned?
Oh, okay. When back in my days of working in on a computer, my favorite is ArtRage. ArtRage is fairly affordable. I think it's like $69, but you definitely need some sort of a stylus. And back in the days when I was teaching ArtRage, we used the small, inexpensive Wacom tablet, which is fine. But the interesting thing is now with the iPads, these programs are a lot more affordable. Procreate is $9.99, ArtRage $4.99. So it has a little bit of advantage that way on the iPad, but by all means, you can work on a computer with ArtRage. Absolutely. Okay, any other questions anybody has for me? Okay, as long as we have a few minutes, let me show you. Going back to my gallery. Now, one thing to think about when you go back to your gallery, it's good. That's not what I want to show you, something incomplete. When you go back to your gallery, you will not be able to go back beyond that point. It saves at that point. So always be careful that any of your undos are going to go away. I thought I would show you. This is fairly recent. Over the holidays, I decided to get into, I challenged myself to start drawing hands. So I was collecting pictures of hands and I started with line drawing.
You have a question? Or you
Sure.
have a question? Okay, so this is from Dolores. Do you ever take your digital painting and do it in watercolor or other mediums?
Yes. You mean just using this as a basis, as a study?
Probably, yeah.
Absolutely. And we can go the other way around. Now, one of the classes that we'll often do is bring in an old painting that you absolutely hate. It was a failure. Bring it in and we will bring it up in Procreate and just work on it. And sometimes you work it out and you say, oh, gee, you know, I can go back to the watercolor and I can scrub out and I can make those changes. But we can try a couple of different versions. And yes, I absolutely do. I often use these as a preliminary. Now here I worked on a line drawing and I was just itching to get color into it. So I used my line drawing. No, this is actually, that's the last one. I used my line drawing and I don't know if my layers are here yet. No, I may have gotten rid of that layer. I used my drawing. I just started painting behind it, getting the color in. And I'll admit something. You know how you post on Instagram and it wants to show you filters? And I really find that annoying. I'm a photographer, I'm a professional photographer, and I really find it, no, if I wanted to manipulate the photo, I would have done it before I got to Instagram. I always find that annoying, and it's another step. But when I went to post this on Instagram, one of the options was to make the background more blue. And I said, gee, I like that. So I didn't post it on Instagram. I took it back into Procreate and I made the background more blue. And then I said, well, this is nice. It's very vibrant on screen, but it's a little dark, and things do tend to be darker when you print them. Because remember, you're looking at light when you're looking at your computer screen or your iPad screen. But when you print, they tend to be a little bit not so vibrant. So I said, well, I think I want to go lighter. And so I went lighter with it. Again, I just went right back to the drawing. And this one, yeah, this one has all the layers. So let me show you. Where's my drawing layer? There we go. Okay. So I can build up the color on different layers. And then chit-chatting online, somebody said, well, how about putting, music, sheet music in the background? I said, well, I was thinking about G clefs or something. I thought of that. So I went looking for some guitar music online and I put it in there. Let me show you that layer alone. And I kind of erased and just wanted it kind of in and out. I didn't want it so solid. And then to twist and bend it, well, we have a tool for that too. We have something called Liquify, and I'm on the wrong layer. Hold on. Okay, we have something called Liquify, and when I go in, I'm in push. Let's see. It'll actually bend. And that is just a photo of a piece of sheet music that I use as a background. Now, some art groups might get a little upset when it comes to shows that, well, she hacked something off the internet and stuck it in a painting. It's not purely painting. I personally don't do much of that. I do more painting. But again, it's a little mixed media at this point. I guess I could have sat there and drawn out all those notes. Many years ago, I actually did some music transposing and I could do it, but it just seemed like too much work at the time. So really the limits to this, it's endless. Things that you can't necessarily do in your natural material, you can do here. You can push the limits more here. Do you have to give up your natural material? No, you don't. Enjoy your oils, enjoy your pastels, your watercolors. And something Emily and I were chatting about earlier, if you have an idea you want to get into oils, you've never been an oil painter, but well, take an oil painting class. It's pretty spendy to go down to Dick Blick or wherever and start buying those tubes of paint. And they're consumable, you're using them. Why not try different styles, different things here, where you paid $9.99 for the program and you never have to replace the color. It's always there. When you want it, the color is there. So it's a great place to try things out, try something new, mix it up a little bit before you go to the real thing.
Great point, Elaine. I have a few more questions that I'm going to read to you.
Sure.
Okay, so the first one is from Nancy. Do you have to spend a lot on the stylus?
Well, not necessarily. There are styluses out there on Amazon. My husband got one that I had to look twice because it looks a lot like this, but they aren't touch sensitive. I don't know of any others that are touch sensitive. And again, I'm going to get back to another document and show you that with, and this is what got me, because I tried an iPad years ago with a cheap stylus that I had and I didn't like it. But if you are, yeah, this will be a good one. As I press harder and tilt, no, that isn't a good one. Hold on, let me find a better one to, I think my watercolors might work. As you press harder and you can tilt the pencil, it just reacts like a real pencil. Now, by all means, try some of those other styluses. I never could paint with those. No, remember the old ones that had the big rubber ball on them? I could never do anything with those. Many of them now have a point similar to this, but you're not going to get the touch sensitivity that you get with the Apple Pencil. Maybe somebody else has come out with it, but not that I know of.
Awesome. Okay, I have a few more questions. And then you're at the 5-minute mark. If you have a partially completed painting, can you take a picture of it and play with the colors before you actually paint it?
Absolutely. You can take a picture of your painting. And I did this for a group last spring. I brought a watercolor painting I didn't like. I let them tear it apart. Tell me, what don't you like about it? And we can play with the colors. You can adjust the colors. You can get in there and paint over it. It's a wonderful way of just struggling with something before you go back to your painting. And maybe you'll be able to fix it. Maybe you'll be able to get a little cooler with it. But absolutely, you can go in there and play with the colors a little bit.
Awesome. Okay, the next question is, if you are just getting started in Procreate, what is the best way to get started? Are there step-by-step tutorials, classes, workshops?
Actually, I have a video on YouTube, and it's on the OSA in the catalog. And I give a very quick rundown on the interface and the things that you should know to get started. I don't have that at my fingertips, but you can find it in the winter catalog on my class.
I'll go ahead and put a link in the chat box right now for everybody so they can click on that and it'll.
Oh, great. Thank you, Emily. See, she has everything at her fingertips. She's so organized.
Well, speaking of fingers, Jeannie wants to know, can you just use your fingers instead of a stylus?
You can. You absolutely can. You're not going to get the fine lines, but yes, you can just paint with your fingers. That's a great way to start. Great way to try it out.
Well, that's all of the questions right now. I'm going to go to my web browser and get the link, and I'll put it in the chat box really quick right now. But other than that, I've got nothing else for you.
Okay, I'll just give one quick plug. My classes on Wednesday night are on Zoom, and you can start at any time. I have the class designed so that every week we're working on a project, and it's a different project all the time. I will always be demonstrating maybe a new tool or a new technique that'll work with that project, but everybody can come where they are in their journey, whether it's their journey with Procreate or whether their journey with painting. We have a group of people, some are very experienced with painting, but not so much with the technology. Other people that are more in tune with the technology, but are just starting out in painting. And it's when we work together and when we chat about our work that we feed off of each other. And so the class is designed that if you can start in the middle, you can show up once in a while as you are able, and bounce in and out. You're welcome to join us at any time.
Awesome. Well, thank you everybody for coming. I emailed the link to myself, so I'm still waiting for that email to come in and then I will post it. Let's see if it's here. Okay, here we go. Let's see. Oops. I should have had this ready to go. Okay, I just posted it in the chat box. So that's the direct link to the class. Oh, it should be everybody. There we go. There we go. Okay, so that's the direct link to the class, and that has Elaine's YouTube video. It's hyperlinked under her class description. So yeah, we're so happy. There was such a wonderful turnout. Thank you everybody for coming.
Yeah, thanks everybody for coming. It's so nice to see you, see some new faces and a few familiar faces from the class, and Cindy from, oh my goodness, that was quite a few years ago. Good to see you. Good to see everybody. Take care and keep painting. Everybody get out there and paint.
Oh, Elaine, I have another question. Sorry.
Sure.
This is from Daryl. What generation of pencil is needed? I see 8th generation for $35.
There is no 8th generation pencil. The Apple pencils are first and second generation. And basically, the first generation has the plug in the end. That was my first pencil, and you have to plug it into your iPad. And that is designed for the iPads that have the lightning plug in. The new ones, at least the iPad Pros, are now USB-C. And this pencil, the second generation pencil, as long as it's touching the iPad, it's charging. So as long as you put it back in there, which I recommend because you don't want to lose it, it will always charge. But which you have to have the pencil that works with your iPad. And there again, if you check the Apple website and get all the generations, I don't know, are we on generation 8 of the iPad, but there's only 2 generations of pencils.
Great. Okay, I think that's all the questions. Thank you, Elaine.
Okay, thank you all for coming. Take care now. Bye now.
Actually, another question came through, Elaine.
Oh.
Which iPad do you recommend?
You know, it really, if you can go for, if you really want to get serious, I love my big iPad Pro. But in the same token, if you want to, I do carry this with me all over. They're still very light, but a little one to carry with you might be better. I think it's OS 13. As long as your iPad will run OS 13, it will run Procreate. The difference is how many layers and how large of a canvas you can work with. The more powerful the iPad, the bigger the canvas and the more layers. But even the iPad minis, and you can get Procreate for your phone, for your iPhone. That to me is too small. I can't deal with that. But I would say get what you comfortably are going to use and take with you, because we have a saying in photography, the best camera is the one that's always with you. You never know when you're going to have a good shot is there for you. And it's the same thing with drawing. You never know when you're going to have time, and you can pull over and just draw. So I guess that's not a very good answer, but hopefully I gave you some food for thought.
All right. Thank you, Elaine. Thank you, everybody, for coming.
Thanks for coming. Take care now.